Well, Ellen has one other question about the host. I'm going to blend her question with my with my question because I think in big numbers, whether it's dollars or whatever it is, everything is big to me. So if I send the host, I probably send way too many because I just think why waste the opportunity in case there's not enough. So if someone would send 10, I'd send 10,000. It's just and then I'll tell God, look, if that's too many, it's up to you to hold them back. So then the other
God's not going to hold them back, Steve. You
well,
said
and
that.
then well, and then there's this question, which is the other side of the coin, where Ellen is saying, how many hosts should I send for one person? In other words, a person that's in need. I was thinking one host is probably enough for one person, but then I started thinking that one person could have 6,000 demons. So how do I know how many I should send? And then she wants to know how many should I send for a city with 100,000 people? So that's the
She needs to watch one of our events we will be having this year. Will be called the Host Initiative. And you will learn strategies, every kind of strategy for every situation you can possibly think of that may or may not happen, which would not be just the weather. The Host Initiative, which is about working with the Army in heaven and commanding them. Like, how would you send, how many for this? What about this? Can we send them around the world? So many of those questions will be answered. And that's probably the only way we'll ever get to answer a lot of them is by, so we're having a whole event called Host Initiative. And that's really when you'll learn the most about it. But I would say, if you're sending them to your kids' college to pull down drug trafficking or something like that, you're not going to need 1 million to do that, okay? You might send 5 or 10 to do something like that. If it's something trying to take over a city, you then could think probably into the thousands to send them there. I right now will send 1 billion. I'll take and send 1 billion to the north, south, east, and west. That would be 4 billion. If I'm covering the earth, taking authority over certain things going on, I will do that. And they will pull down every stronghold. They come, no matter where it is or how that happens. They begin to shred the platforms of evil, operating with the evil people. And then the other thing, I'll give them, more than one thing to do when I send them.
Okay.
And you can't, I think for you, you get so excited about you have authority. And if you send 10,000, they're going. And I can tell you what you do. If I'm sending extras, you will then go into every street and hallway and alley in the city I'm sending them to. Once you complete that, go into every street, into every building, and pull down every stronghold there. That way the other ones have something to do. That would be something we would teach you in the Host Initiative. So you can always add to what you're sending them. You may send them for specific things in an area, but you can always send more with them to pull down stuff. You could even say within 500 miles of where I sent those, I can send them to 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles, and they will keep going until they have completed what you're given orders. Just like you wrote them down. You're the headquarters for heaven. When you have an army, you send them from where you're at. You tell them what to do because our military has to operate on orders. They can't make it up themselves.
It seems like you told me or us together that when you go out every dark in the wee hours of the morning to start sending the host, which you do every day, if I understand. I think you described them as sitting there waiting with their hands folded. Was that you that said that? That your hosts were sitting there waiting? Well, I kind of had this comical thought this morning, whether that was you or someone else, that like if I was going to send 100 or 1,000 and I decided to send 100, I'm thinking here's 900 angels saying, go, send me. Because if I don't send them, they're going to just sit there and do nothing. So
they will be bored, Steve. You have an army from heaven that was assigned to you. I have one assigned to me. I can't tell yours what to do. I can't tell my husband's what to do. He has an army from heaven. He sends on assignments to other places. Yes, they don't want to sit there and do nothing. They were sent to you to command and send out. See, this is since 2014, when the army was assigned to us on the earth. You have to invite them to come. Let me tell you, there's so many parameters and dynamics to just saying that. Number one, you can't be sinning. They're not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
You could have had an army that you've been commanding for 5 years decide you're going to live a life of sin. They will leave. They don't have to obey someone remember, they hearken unto the word of the Lord. That means when it sounds like things he would say, the Lord was pure and holy. You know, he is the Lord of hosts. He still is the Lord of hosts. Jesus is still over all of the armies of heaven everywhere. He knows when they're assigned somewhere. He knows that we have the right to send them, that if we would send them where they need to go to bring destruction to the enemy's plans, to crush back the plans of hell. And yes, that's going to affect the people in the natural who are doing it, because you take authority first in the spirit, which is the original eternal realm. This physical realm was wrapped around part of it so he could make us and send us to this earth. So, but the spirit realm is the eternal realm. That's what it is. And that's where the army operates in. Yes, they come to earth, but the spirit realm is still around here. And they operate according to the orders you give them. And they cannot make up orders themselves. In other words, unless you say something to your army, like, okay, I'm sending you over here. I've heard that there's new, let's just say there's new terrorists moved into this area of America. I would send like 100,000 because it was a great group coming in. I send 100,000 to pull down every stronghold of Satan, empowering them, speaking to them, revealing things to them so they could do evil deeds. I take authority over the spiritual evil first. And we have that removed, shut the mouths of the demons. They can't speak to the people who are doing these deeds, take away the power that they're giving them. And then what happens is wicked man, when they have no power, they feel powerful inside when the enemy is helping them. Great fear falls on them. And then after fear, confusion comes. So you are affecting this world by learning to operate with the authority Christ gave you to command the host of heaven. You are making a difference. I have a brother who would rather just go shoot the people in the natural, but he's not really accomplishing anything, because we rule and reign with Christ in the kingdom he talked about, which is a spiritual kingdom that has real positions, real grounds, real authority in the spirit realm. And that's where you have to be able to see that this is what's happening. But you do have a position in that kingdom. Jesus clearly talked about how important it was to understand it. We may have to do a whole thing on just what is the kingdom, Steve.
Yeah,
that
and
not today.
We could do this one subject, the whole thing. But it's very clear to me, because I've heard you talk about it so many times. They're not going to obey your command if you're in sin or you're sinning. So that you mentioned a little bit ago, you could have had an army for 5 years that you're commanding. And so my question is, how specific is it? So I'm commanding the army, and then somehow I got into a fleshly place today, and I got into a fight with somebody, a verbal fight, and we just parted, and I said some words with my mouth that effectively were cursing words. I don't mean you swore. I just said, they're just no good. And then you forget about it.
I would encourage you, when you do that, anybody doing that, you better nullify the words you just spoke.
Yeah,
because otherwise the words will remain. I'll go in places and hear words people spoke years ago.
So my question about the host, Cat, is if you did that and you didn't nullify it, and then a little while later you forgot about it and you're starting to send the host, will they just sit there with their arms folded? Because
they're probably going to wait for you to say something. It's not the same as going out and sleeping with everybody down the street. Okay, I just get to be real blunt to save time. If you're doing that, your army's leaving. It's going back to heaven. So I mean, that's a lifestyle of sin. Okay. If you do something, it says we should always have a good report to give. We should always have words that help heal and bring hope and joy and celebration and reveal who God is. That's what we're supposed to be doing. That's what Jesus did. But Jesus was angry but didn't sin. When he threw everything in the temple, I mean, he was mad. He had it with all the cheaters and the stealers. Even he didn't like them when they tried to cheat the people, buying the sacrifices. He had just gotten it. God didn't tell him to tear up the temple. That was his decision. The courtyard, the Holy Spirit's now correcting me, okay? When he tore up the courtyard where the vendors were, I mean, he threw tables. Those tables weren't an inch thick. They were made out of timbers. He was strong. He picked up probably 6-inch timber, made out of timber tables, and threw them everywhere. And he was smashing stuff. Well, he didn't sin because that was righteous wrath. That's not giving you the right to do it. I'm only using it as an example. Okay, God didn't hold that against Christ. He didn't withhold his power. But Christ himself could not have gone out and just killed anybody he wanted to. That would have been wrong in his time even. He couldn't go sleep with somebody, which he never would have done. And I'm not saying he ever did that. He never did that. There's a difference. There's a difference in being angry and upset. Okay. And there's a difference in sin. Sin causes you to be unrighteous. Okay. Sin makes you unrighteous, not righteous. What I would tell people to do, I've been upset a couple times with people, and I'll just say, even if they've walked away, I may call them later, send them in a text saying, sorry, I got angry. I'm sorry, I got angry. That's all I would say. But if I say words and I keep saying them, it depends if you say something like you're an idiot, you're stupid or something like that. Well, maybe they are. Maybe they need, because God instead, I'll pray for them to have sound wisdom instead. But it's like there's a thin line in some areas, but some areas you're angry, you're upset about things. You should always say for your own soul, because you have to understand, if you shredded somebody and you were really just couldn't stand them, don't ever say you wish they would die. Don't ever say those words. God's not going to do that. If you say words and you said them, then you say, I nullify every word I just spoke in that situation. I nullify every word I spoke over that person. Good. I command it to be removed from the atmosphere, and I loose it from my soul, because guess what? If you don't lose those anger words out of your soul, you'll say them again. Because when they're in there, you'll think about them. The most important thing is to make sure you loosen from your own soul. Apologize to the person if you get the opportunity. Maybe it was on the road, because I happen to know men don't like people to pass them in cars, so they yell at them. They say things maybe they should. I'm not saying curse words either. We'll say profanity. I'm not saying you use profanity, but you said some very unkind things to them. You're not going to be able to stop them down the road. They'll think you're having road rage. So no, but you can say to yourself, Father, forgive me for being angry. Forgive me for speaking those words against that person. I loose it from my soul and nullify the effect that they would have. That's what you need to say.
That's good. And so you live a lifestyle that.
And then your host, that's my lifestyle, okay? Yeah. I don't keep anything in my soul that would interfere with my relationship with God or the authority and dominion I walk in. I'm not letting the devil get that away from me at all. He would love to, but he's not going to.
When it's time for me, it's my time to send the host, I will just make sure I've confessed. I'll say, forgive me for my sins, Lord, known or unknown. I just didn't want anything to get in the way of it. Well, I have a question.
That's very wise, T. That's very wise. Okay. I'm not necessarily, I'll do it whenever something happens, but that is a wise thing for people who don't think about that, because they'll be sitting there staring at you. They were there when you said it.